In this session, I want to talk about increased self-awareness. And in the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, there's a famous inscription which says, "Know thyself." And in Shakespeare's famous Hamlet play, Act 1, Scene 3, Polonius says, and I'm not very good at acting, so excuse this, is "This above all to thy own self be true. And it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." And I think this really lies at the very heart of how we operate in the world and how we are trusted, and our relationships we have at work or at home or wherever else, is when we are more self-aware, when we are more congruent, more authentic, then we will absolutely build massively better quality relationships because we are being true. Then people understand who we are. And a lot of this is accepting all of who we are. So if there's greater clarity about who we are, what makes us think the way we think, what makes us feel the way we feel, what makes us behave the way we behave, then actually it puts us more in control, because through awareness comes control. Now, one of the models that, is often used in coaching, is the Johari window, which you've probably all seen. It's this idea about what's known to me, what's not known to me, what's known to others, what's not known to others. And this idea is that what we want to do is sort of get rid of the hidden and the blind spots. And so we become more open, we become more true and expressing who we are. And a lot of this is this idea about what is our shadow part of ourselves. But I think it's not just about finding the negatives. It's all about recognizing what are your own unique strengths, and what I call about what are your key success factors. What's got you to where you are now is very often what's going to get you to the next level up. So we've really got to work out what's your unique strengths you bring into this space. And then what I always say is that we then got to build those even more to make them even more powerful for you. So some of the exercise I'll bring into the coaching thing is I'll often do what I call the 8 adjective spider. I encourage people to speak to 8 people they know, work colleagues, friends, family, whatever, and tell them to write down, each of them, without even editing, 8 words that immediately come to mind about that person. And they may have, stubborn, they may have kind-hearted, they may have intelligent, whatever. And then we can collect those together, those 64 adjectives, and we get a pretty good idea about, who they really are perceived to be. Bear in mind that we always have a very poor, understanding of who we really are when we first start looking into this stuff. Then one of the big things I really want to do is look at the values that a person holds. And I don't want to, that trite list that people always rack out. I want to get into what they really are. And I tend to explore that through a number of different routes. One is like, what makes you angry? What makes you angry is when someone has transgressed one of your values. Then I look at what makes you ashamed or embarrassed. That's when you have broken one of your own values. And then one of the things I look at is, tell me some of the big decisions you made yourself. No one else made them for you. Your mum didn't make it, your work didn't make it, you made it. Then we dig into what was the underlying value that you put upon that stuff. And then we can start to understand what makes this person who they are. And we can hierarchy them, and bear in mind we can have slightly more positive and negative ones. So we've really got to understand the values, because that becomes a really important definer of who we are. And then we'll also explore, who is your identity? Who do you see yourself to be? The positives and the negatives. And then I may do the timeline, this idea about, what made you who you are? So I'll draw a line, and above it are the positive events that created you, and below the line maybe some of the negative events that also shaped you, and both will shape you. So the more we can understand that, who we really are is really powerful. And then obviously we can dip into the various psychometric tests, be it DISC, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, negotiation styles, sort of, empathy skills, love language, etc. We can shape those in whichever one feels we need to go and look at. But I find that I like them as a starting point, as a jumping off from, rather than this being this self-defining, because I don't believe that. I sort of believe one day you'll be like that, another day you'll be like that. But it just helps us to have a conversation. We start it from that process, but we don't end with it. So yeah, coaching is all about increasing your self-awareness and putting you back in control.